I spent years flirting with coworkers at his company events. He quit and took every friend with him. I didn't cheat. Let me start there. I know people are going to twist this, but I need to say this clearly. I never crossed that line. What did I do? I flirted. I was just friendly with his coworkers and he couldn't handle it. So he got all upset and decided to wreck my life. My name is Kate and my husband is James. We've been married for 5 years and it has been nothing short of sweet and sour. I have always been the outgoing, sweet social butterfly, and James is a little bit reserved. So yeah, in a way, we were kind of balanced. When emotions were high, he'd become the calm in the storm, quiet, thoughtful, and steady, while I was the one crying, venting, or pacing the room. It worked for us, or at least it used to, because that phase ended brutally last week. Anyway, James accused me of cheating with his coworkers, when I didn't, not really. Or at least he never saw me do such. It started during the very first company event I ever attended, when his coworker told me that I made all the girls at their workplace look like 3s while I was a solid 10. I was a bit drunk, and he escorted me to the restroom. When I came out, he kissed me, and I pulled him into the restroom and we had a moment. Every event since then, I'd flirt, and sometimes someone would get lucky. About 2 years ago, after one of the company events, James and I had a fight. And honestly, I still don't understand why. Why invite me if you're just going to fight me when we get home? I didn't really understand his intentions. The thing is, James worked at a great company with a solid income, and most of their events were always grand. So of course, I made sure to look the part. I always dressed up beautifully to match the vibe. And yes, most of his colleagues found me attractive. I could tell from how they talked to me and the way they acted when we interacted. That night, he introduced me to everyone, mostly his closest friends at work, and we all got along really well. I laughed, smiled, and made conversation. It was nothing much. Okay, let's say I did have a little moment with some of them, but I made it clear that I was married, and I was never going to cheat on my husband, although I later did. Still, our vibes just clicked. We talked about everything. It was effortless, almost like talking to a twin. At some point, we pulled ourselves away from the others. It felt easier to breathe there. I would let them kiss me and I'd kiss them back passionately. And yes, maybe there was a little bit of ass grabbing too, and occasional quickies that didn't mean anything. But that was all it was. Just a moment. At the beginning it ended quickly because I thought of James. I remembered who I was married to. I reminded myself that I loved him and I truly didn't want to hurt him. But eventually I told myself that I was doing it for him. I never, ever planned to cheat. It wasn't my fault that things turned out this way. I didn't mean for it to happen. And besides, James never knew the full story. All he knew was that I spent too much time with one of his coworkers, and he didn't like that. Because I really did spend the whole night with the guy instead of James or together with the others. To James, it probably looked like I chose someone else. But I never did. I just got caught up in the moment, and I didn't even realize hours passed by. Then the other part was just a fleeting mistake, one I buried and one I hoped would never come back to haunt us. But of course it did. So that was how we got into a fight, because I acted like the cool wife. I just wanted to be friendly, to help him shine, to earn him a great reputation. You know how these things work. Make a good impression, be supportive, blend into his world without causing problems. But I guess that kind of backfired. I was angry and I flared up. I couldn't understand what I had done so wrong. Deep down, I felt like he was just jealous. Jealous that I had taken over the spotlight in his own workplace. I mean, that's how it felt. Because I truly didn't see what I did to deserve that reaction. I told him he was being insecure. I said instead of being proud that his wife could hold her own and leave a lasting impression, he chose to pick a fight. He got really upset. And just like that, what was supposed to be a fun night turned sour. But somehow, we moved past it. But that didn't change the fact that things only got worse. And now I know that he didn't like how I laughed too hard at his coworkers' jokes. I wore dresses that got attention. I made eye contact too long. But it was innocent, mostly. He used to love that about me. He said I was magnetic, said I made people feel welcome, and said I lit up a room. Until that room was filled with his colleagues. Suddenly my charm became a threat. For years I went to every one of his company events. Dinners, retreats, happy hours. I supported him, smiled, networked, remembered names, and made everyone feel comfortable. His bosses loved me. His team always asked if I was coming. But then came the whispers. From him. You were a little too friendly with Marcus tonight. I saw how Caleb was looking at you. You let him touch your waist when he walked by? It got exhausting. Every event became a minefield. I'd tone it down, and he'd say I was being cold. I'd try to be social, and he'd sulk the whole drive home. And I wasn't about to dull myself to make him feel better. I would never do that. No man who truly loved you would react to things that way. What was I supposed to do? Sit down at the event and sulk just to make him feel secure? Reject every opportunity that came my way so he wouldn't feel threatened? I just couldn't. Those events helped me build valuable connections. They were part of my growth. And honestly, they boosted his image too. People respected him more when they saw us together, saw me shining beside him. So why was he always so angry, so paranoid? I mean, yeah, I flirted, I was friendly, I was social, and sometimes things went a little far, but I never thought I was being unfaithful in the way James made it sound. It was never emotional. It wasn't about replacing him. I just liked the attention. That's the truth. And the truth is that perhaps James wasn't paranoid like I used to say he was. He wasn't imagining things or being dramatic or insecure for no reason. The reason most of his coworkers liked me so much wasn't because I was just bubbly and nice and stylish. It was because I let them get close. Too close. Like, yeah, even at those company events. I let them fondle me sometimes when no one was looking. I let them get handsy, and I didn't stop it. Sometimes I encouraged it. I know it sounds terrible, and yeah, it probably is, but I didn't see it that way at the time. I told myself it was harmless and that it was all playful. I convinced myself that it didn't mean anything, but it didn't stop there either. There were times when I actually met up with some of his bosses. And when I say bosses, I mean the big guys in the company. The kind of big guys who could actually do something for James's career. We'd meet in hotels sometimes, and we'd drink and laugh, and yeah, we'd hook up. I was careful, like very careful. I made sure James never found out. I covered my tracks, deleted texts, and tried my very best to stay ahead of it all. So to me, he had no reason to suspect anything. He just had a hunch and ran with it, and that's what pissed me off the most. He didn't know anything and just started getting weird about the way I acted at events, how I laughed too loud or hugged people too long. He was suspicious about the wrong things when he has no idea of the actual things that were happening behind the scenes, and what's worse was that he never had proof. He just has a suspicious and protective guess, and even though his guess was technically right, I still hated that. I hated that he didn't trust me. I hated that he started treating me like I was the problem, like I was a burden to his work life. I wasn't. I was the one who made those events shine. I was the one who helped him look good. People respected him more when I was by his side, and I know that for a fact. And believe me when I say that, his career shot for the stars. Then one day he had this company event. Apparently it was a very big night with clients and top managers and all that. And guess what he did? He didn't tell me about it, nor did he invite me. He just went alone like I didn't exist and he wasn't married. I only found out because one of his coworkers texted me and said he hoped to see me there. I was shocked. I felt like my heart dropped. How could James not even mention it after everything I've done to support him at these things? It was a slap in the face. I didn't confront him about it, though. I didn't ask him why. I just stayed quiet and waited. I watched him get dressed and leave like nothing was wrong, and I let him go. Then I took my time. I dressed up real nice. I picked out a dress that hugged my body in all the right ways. I did my makeup right. I looked like a dream come to life. Then I went to the event, on my own. The moment I stepped in, heads turned. People noticed that someone special had stepped into the building. I smiled and waved as I said hi to everyone. I was the same Kate they always loved seeing. You could feel the energy shift. It was like suddenly the room came alive, and then I saw James. To say that he was shocked would be the understatement of the century. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, and he didn't even try to hide the bewilderment. He marched straight to me and pulled me aside. I could see from the look on his face that he was upset. He asked what I was doing there and why I showed up uninvited. I told him he was a small man who was petty and couldn't even be thankful for all the work I'd done to make him look good. I told him that he was jealous and insecure and couldn't handle me being the center of attention. He asked me to go home. I strongly refused, standing my ground. He cautioned me, saying it wasn't the time or place. I was frustrated, but he was right. It wasn't the time or place. I just rolled my eyes and walked out. I really felt insulted and was done listening to him. I stepped outside and stood by the valet area, and that's when one of his bosses came out. He was smiling like he just won the lottery and said I looked amazing. He asked if I needed a ride, and I said yes. We got in his car and drove to a nearby hotel. We kissed and fondled before I knew it. We had a quickie. It wasn't anything emotional. Rather, it was fast and messy, but it felt good in the moment. I got what I needed, and so did he. He dropped me back off, and I went inside and freshened up. James came back home later that night when I was already in bed. He didn't say anything to me, and I didn't speak as well. He slept on his side, and I slept on mine. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when he walked by. I didn't expect him to come in, but he did. He looked at me for a second and then walked over. He said he was sorry for the night before. He apologized for how he acted and for how he spoke to me. He said he didn't want to fight anymore, that he missed the way things used to be. I didn't say anything at first. I was just quiet for some seconds. Then I told him I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. I needed more than just an apology. He laughed and pulled me into his embrace and kissed me on the forehead. He said he didn't expect me to let him off so easily. That afternoon, I met up with a few of my friends, and we sat outside on the patio of the little cafe we always liked to go to. We stayed out there for a while and just talked about everything. I told them how James had been acting super insecure lately, and how he basically chased me out of his company event the night before. They were all shocked at first, and then they all agreed that I did the right thing by not talking to him for the rest of the night. They said it was good that I stood my ground and didn't let him walk all over me. That silence made him see that I wasn't going to keep putting up with that kind of treatment, and that he had to get his act together if he wanted to keep me. I also told them that he apologized the next morning and said he didn't want to fight anymore, and he even kissed me on the forehead. They praised me and said that's what they were talking about. They said sometimes men need a reality check to remind them who they're dealing with. I didn't say much after that because part of me still felt weird about the whole thing, but I wasn't about to go into all the details either. What happened with his boss was just one of those things that wasn't anyone's business. I didn't feel guilty about it, honestly. I just felt like it was done and over with. In a way, it helped me reset because I felt like I had some control back. Things with James actually got a little better after that. For a while, we were kind of back to our usual ways, and he started acting sweeter again. He'd text me more during the day and come home with my favorite snacks, and we'd sit together at night and watch shows, and it felt like we were slowly getting back into that easy rhythm we used to have. I wasn't really pushing anything, I just let it happen, and I think he did too. He didn't bring up the event or the fight, and neither did I, so it felt like we had this unspoken agreement to move on from it. It was nice while it lasted, and for a moment I actually thought we were getting back to being that lovey-dovey couple people always talked about. But then, his company's anniversary came around and everything just flipped again. At first it didn't feel like a big deal. He mentioned the event a few days ahead, and he said they were planning something bigger this year, and he had a lot to prepare. He didn't say anything about me going or not going, so I just assumed I'd be there like always. I mean, I'd gone to every single one of these things since we got married. Everyone at his office already knew me and expected me there, so it didn't even cross my mind that this one would be any different. He said he had to go in early that day, so I figured I'd meet him later, or we'd drive together once he got home. I picked out this really pretty gown I had bought a few months ago that I never got to wear. It was this deep navy blue that looked amazing on my skin, and it fit me perfectly. That afternoon, I got it out and ironed it and laid it out on the bed. I was already imagining how the night would go and how I'd see everyone again, and we'd laugh and talk, and I'd help James make another good impression. I even planned to take a few pictures with him so we could post them later like we used to. Those posts always got so many likes and comments, and people would always say how great we looked together. It made me feel proud and happy. That evening, he came home earlier than I expected, and he looked really good. He had on his tailored suit and a fresh haircut, and he smelled like the cologne I liked. I smiled when I saw him walk in, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a great night. I was upstairs already doing my makeup, and I told him I'd be ready in 20 minutes. I had my hair curled and my heels by the door, and everything felt like it was falling into place. But then he came upstairs and looked at me and asked what I was doing. I was standing by the mirror, fixing my eyeliner, and I turned to him and asked him what it looked like I was doing. He said it looked like I was dressing up, but he didn't know what for. I thinned my eyes and told him that I was getting ready for his company anniversary. I thought it was obvious. He looked at me for a second, and then he said he was going alone. I put the eyeliner down and stared at him. My heart was racing, but I tried to play it cool. I asked why, and he said it's a work thing and he needed to focus. I felt my face get hot because, like, what? After all I've done at these events, I reminded him how I always show up and charm his coworkers and make him look like a rock star. I told him people expect me there, and it's weird if I don't go. He just shrugged and said it's not a big deal. I couldn't believe it. I was standing there with my gown on the bed, already ironed. My hair was done, and my makeup was halfway there. And he was acting like I was some random friend asking to tag along. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just nodded and said fine. He grabbed his keys, gave me a quick peck on the cheek, and left. I stood there for a good 10 minutes, staring at the door. I was so mad, but more than that, I was hurt. Like, how could he do this? I thought we were past the jealousy and the insecurity. I thought his apology meant we were good, but he's leaving me behind like I'm some kind of liability. It stung bad. I didn't stay home, though, and no, I didn't go to the event, so don't worry. Although there was no way I was sitting on the couch in my pajamas while he partied it up. I finished getting ready, and I slipped into my gown, and let me tell you, I looked fire. I wasn't about to let James ruin my night. I called my friend Mia and asked if she wanted to hit a bar downtown. She was down, so I grabbed my purse and headed out. I didn't tell James I was going out because honestly, he didn't deserve to know. At the bar, Mia and I got drinks and started catching up. I told her about the anniversary party and how James ditched me. She was pissed for me, saying he's being a jerk and probably just scared I'll steal the show again. I laughed, but deep down I was still fuming. We danced, flirted with some guys at the bar, and had a good time, but my mind kept drifting back to James. I wondered what he was doing, who he was talking to, and if he even cared that I wasn't there. The next morning, James came home all cheerful, like nothing happened. He said the party was great and his speech went well. I just nodded and sipped my coffee, not saying much. He asked why I was so quiet, and I said I was tired. I didn't want to start a fight, but I was still mad. I kept thinking about how he didn't invite me and how he acted like it was no big deal. It made me question everything, like, does he even want me in his life anymore? Things stayed weird after that. We didn't fight, but we weren't all lovey-dovey either. It was like we were just going through the motions. I gave him the silent treatment for so long, and whenever he asked me what was wrong, I'd say it was nothing, or I'd come up with an excuse. Soon enough, he became silent as well, and minded his business. He'd go to work, I'd do my thing, and we'd eat dinner together, but it felt off. I started wondering if I'd pushed him too far. We had a friend's birthday party, and I gave someone a lap dance, and when we got home, things got worse. He wasn't even talking to me anymore. I worried that I had put him to the wall with how I acted at the event. In my defense, it didn't mean anything, just like how everything that happened at his company events were. They meant nothing. I simply flirted and let guys get close. He never saw or knew about the extra stuff, and I never thought that the surface thing would make him shut me out like this. I told myself it was his problem, not mine. How would he react if he knew the whole truth? He was just being overly insecure. A few weeks later, I met up with my friends again. We went to brunch and I spilled everything. I told them how James didn't invite me to the anniversary party and how he's been acting distant, especially since the birthday party. Jess said he's probably intimidated by how much everyone loves me. Mia agreed and said I should keep doing me and that he'd come around. My other friend, Sarah, was quieter this time, though. She said maybe I should talk to him and figure out what's really going on. I brushed it off because I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to stay mad, not fix things. But Sarah's words stuck with me. I started thinking about all the times I flirted at James's events. Like, yeah, I had fun, and I liked the attention. I remembered the coworker I kissed, the bosses I hooked up with, and how I always told myself it didn't mean anything. I never told James, so he shouldn't know, but maybe he sensed it. Maybe that's why he's pulling away. I didn't talk to him, though. I just kept acting like everything was fine. But inside, I was a mess. I kept replaying that night he told me he was going alone. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. I started wondering if I'd messed things up for good. I started wondering if he was done with me and if he was tired of my charm and my vibe. One night, James came home late from a work dinner. I was already in bed, scrolling on my phone. He climbed in, and I expected him to just roll over and sleep. But he didn't. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "We need to talk." My heart sank because I knew it wasn't going to be good. I sat up and asked, "What's up?" He said he's been feeling like we're not us anymore. He said he loves me, but he doesn't trust me at his work events. He brought up how I act with his coworkers and how it makes him feel small. I got defensive, and I told him that he was being paranoid and that I'm just being friendly. I said he should be proud that his wife's a catch, not mad about it. He shook his head and said it's not about that. He said he's tired of wondering what I'm doing when I'm with his colleagues, especially after seeing how I enthusiastically gave someone a lap dance at our friend's birthday party. I went because it felt like he knew more than he was saying, but he didn't accuse me of anything specific, so I didn't confess. I just said he's overreacting and went back to my phone. After that, things got colder. We barely talked, and when we did, it was about dumb stuff like bills or groceries. I kept telling myself I didn't do anything wrong. Like, yeah, I hooked up with his bosses, but he doesn't know, so it shouldn't count. I flirted, but that's just who I am. I'm not going to change for him. But deep down, I knew I wasn't being honest with myself. I knew I'd crossed lines, even if I didn't want to admit it. A month later, James had another work event, a smaller one, just a team dinner. I waited for him to bring it up, but he didn't. I found out from a coworker who texted me, asking if I was coming. I felt that same sting from the anniversary party. I didn't tell James I knew about it. I just watched him get ready that night. I was in the living room, pretending to read a book. He said he'd be home late and left. Once he left the house, I sprang off the couch I was sitting on and headed into the room where I dressed up. When I say dressed up, I mean really dressed up. The kind of outfit that makes men stare and women side-eye. I looked good and I knew it. The goal was simple. Show up, remind James what he was missing, and maybe make him regret leaving me out. But I wasn't going to let him see me right away. I wanted to linger, you know? Let him catch glimpses of me in the crowd. Let him wonder if I was really there or if he was imagining things. I wanted to be a ghost that would haunt him until he'd try to catch me. But that's the thing about plans. They almost never work out the way you intend them to go. I got to the event and slipped in easily. Of course, heads turned, whispers followed, and I could feel the energy shift. Some of his coworkers smiled at me like desperate animals making attempts at getting my attention, but I didn't care. Others looked confused, like they had been hit in the face with a brick. I could see the jealousy and admiration on the faces of the female coworkers, but in all, nobody stopped me. I blended in like I always did. Then I saw James. He was across the room, laughing with some guy from his team, completely unaware I was there. I made sure to stay just out of his line of sight at first. I went to meet some of the people I usually talk to, and I mingled, laughed a little too loud, let my hand linger on the arms of the men I was talking to, and I even let them place their hands on my waist, the usual. Then, after a while, I mistakenly turned, and my eyes met with James. It wasn't on purpose. He was just talking to his coworkers at a distance, and I was about to turn when we immediately caught each other's gaze, but it was enough for him to freeze mid-conversation. His face went blank, like his brain short-circuited, and then he turned away. Yeah, just like that. He didn't storm over to yell at me, nor did he glare at me angrily. Nothing. He acted like I was a stranger. That stung really bad. So I doubled down. If he was going to ignore me, fine. I'd give him a reason to really lose it. Later, when the party was winding down, I ended up outside with one of his bosses, the same one from last time. We were tipsy, flirty, and before I knew it, we found ourselves in his car. We had our hands all over each other, kissing and squeezing, and before long we were having sex in the back seat of his car. It was stupid, reckless, and honestly, I didn't care. All of a sudden, I heard a subtle knock on the window of the car. I turned my head and there was James, staring right at us through the window. My heart dropped, like full-on dropped. I thought my soul was leaving my body at that point. It was straight-up terror. He didn't look mad, though. He didn't look anything. And then he walked away before I could even fix my clothes or scramble out of the car. I chased after him, but he was gone. He had vanished like a ghost. I was panicking and feeling like I couldn't breathe. I needed to find James, but I couldn't. The next few days were something of an overwhelming rage of silence and fear. James didn't come home. His phone went straight to voicemail. I called his friends, and half of them didn't pick my calls, and those who did asked me how I could be so careless and shameless. I couldn't believe James. He has aired our dirty laundry for everyone to see. How could he tell his friends? But it wasn't just his friends, mine as well. My friends, the ones who always had my back, suddenly turned on me. Sarah straight up told me that I lied to them this whole time and let them badmouth my husband as though he was the one in the wrong. Well, at least she answered my call. Jess didn't bother answering my calls, and Mia just blocked my number entirely. In frustration, I went to his office to look for him, and they told me that James had quit. Quit, just like that. Who does that? He erased himself from my life in a week, and it was terrifying what would come next. I am scared to the bone. Update. Hello, everyone. It's Kate again. So I've been alone for some time now. Like, actually alone. No husband, no friends, and yeah, no family as well, because they caught wind of everything that happened, and they want nothing to do with me anymore. And the worst part? I still don't know if I really regret it. Maybe I do. Or maybe I just regret getting caught. Either way. James came back home after about 2 weeks away, and when I tried to talk to him, he said he just wanted to get his things. He said he had gotten his own place and that I could renew the rent in our house if I wanted to continue staying there. And when he was leaving, he gave me a file and it had divorce papers in it. I tried to tell him that he was taking things too far, but he pretended as though I wasn't present. So yeah, I signed it. He should get out of my life if he wanted to be that petty. After all, he owed his life to me and not the other way around.